Woody?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I can make a few remarks, and I'll keep it short. I know it's hot out there, and we've got a long night ahead. Um, we, the police department, we understand the national and the local outrage over the issues we've all been reading and hearing about for the past few weeks. We know there's a need, there's a call for change, and I'd like to think that we're above and better than what's happened in Minneapolis and other places across the country. I know we are in Great Barrington, and I agree reform is necessary, but I think it should come along the lines of measures that we've seen being put out there. I guess predominantly last week the governor issued some guidelines he's going to propose. That's just one example. And he talks most importantly about certification and probably more important, decertification of police officers. And I'm all in favor of that. I think that's a long time in coming, and especially in, getting rid of people that should not be police officers. And I think there's some other good proposals, governors, we put out last week, and we'll see where there you go. And I just wanted to real quickly put out to you the three main platforms that I see that we've been dealing with the Great Barrington Police Department with these issues that we've dealt with in the past, how we're currently dealing with them, and how I propose that we continue to deal with them in the future. A lot of these things I'm very proud of, and I mentioned before, so I won't dwell on them, because I think you've probably heard me speak before, but number one, we're the only police department in Berkshire County that's accredited. And that's a big thing for us. And accreditation comes from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission, and it's very policy and training driven. We have policies on all the topics that we've been reading about in the paper. Use of force. We have training on use of force. Every year the policy gets reviewed, updated with the officers. Every year, as I said before, we have annual use of force training. Every year we have annual defensive tactics training, which is a big item we've been reading about. And through in-service, again with certified Mass Police Training Council instructors, we have defensive training tactics. What you saw in Minneapolis, for example, does not go and will not go, and you will not see in Great Barrington. We also, through our in-service, have a lot of training in the past couple of years on de-escalation, and that's a big part of our 40 hours of in-service training every year. And every single year, every police officer in the state is required to have 40 hours of in-service training, and that's across the state. Again, that's through the Training Council.
Is a $2,000 reduction in the budget, and it might focus things if you could react in particular to what effect that change would have on your operation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting there.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
I want to point out some highlights too. Okay, what some of this money goes towards. You have the right to know that. You should know it, and I just want to give you some of that. Third thing, very quickly, is that we started a year ago, and again, this is one of the things that have been in the paper lately, a partnership with the Breen Center. They're doing it in North County, Central County, and we started it in South County, where the Breen Center actually has a clinician 2 days a week that works out of the Great Barrington Police Station. And we started that in South County because a lot of the calls we handle are related to that. And now we're seeing it across the country. So we've been a little bit ahead of the curve in that area. In fact, we took that program and expanded it and offered it to all the other police departments in South County. And now they all are able to participate with it through our dispatch. We'll get the clinician out there, and it's not even just Tuesday, Thursday. She's on call outside of those hours, weekends and nights. She has a lot of appointments at the station. She'll go with officers on calls with evaluations and paperwork. And that's been a tremendous asset, this co-responder program with the Breen Center. Okay, so to wrap up and to answer, I guess, precisely the question.
In 15 seconds. Go ahead.
we have 17 full-time police officers. That counts myself, 2 sergeants, and 14 patrol officers. So we basically have 14 patrol officers, okay? And that covers Great Barrington, Housatonic, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In my mind, not too much at all. And there really is no fluff or extra in that salaries budget, and to defund it by this amount or any amount would actually come from salaries, because that's all I have. And that would mean some shifts, every shift, we have 2 officers on the road. Every shift is 2 officers. So we defund from the salaries, it's going to mean some shifts with 1 officer working and no backup. And, you know, be honest with you, it's not fair to the officers to be out there in a town this size, midnight shifts, you're all 3 shifts, and you're all by yourself. Backup through mutual aid, it's out there, but it's probably 20 minutes away, longer at nighttime. So decrease in salaries would be, some shifts would come back to 1 officer, and we've been at 2 for years and years, and I think we provide good service with those 2 officers. So finally, I would just ask that you not make these budget cuts so that we can continue to protect and serve the best little town in America. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment on the proposed amendment to cut $200,000 from the police department budget? Right to my left.
Abby Schroeder, Stony Brook Road, Great Barrington. I've known Chief Walsh since he began. I know many of the police officers when they were in high school. I run an international company having to do with the entertainment field. And I've just spent 3 months in New York City because of the pandemic. I was not affected, but I wanted to be near my kids. I feel that this is a little premature, and I am a town person who thinks a lot about our town, and I do things with and for the town quietly. I believe that this coming year, if we don't see big changes in the world, and especially in our country, we then have the opportunity to make changes in our little town. But I think that our problem is one where we are a certain number of people who are the voters, and then we have an astounding number of people that have come in and enjoy our town. They are the weekenders, and they're wonderful. They put a lot of money in the economy. There are the people who are moving up here that haven't paid taxes, but comes the summertime, they call for help, and our police have to be there. So it's a problem. It's 2-pronged. There's us that want to cut down, and I'm with you. I mean, I would like to see other people come in and join the group that are helping the community and take the responsibility off the shoulders of the policemen who are not necessarily trained to do all the things that are needed. But this particular year, where everything is happening at once, pretty much, and things are going to change across the country, good or bad, it's mostly going to be good. I have that feeling. So I would recommend that we do not make the change this year. We cannot afford to cut salaries on policemen who don't make a lot of money anyway. And we need them. We need the police, we need the fire. So hopefully you'll wait to see what happens this year across the country, because there's going to be a lot of change everywhere.
Any further comments on the proposed amendment? If not, I will call for a vote on the amendment so we can move forward. The amendment is to reduce the police department line item by $200,000. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your cards. Let's see if we can do this. All those opposed, raise your cards. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do this again. I'm sorry. Are the tellers out there in the audience? Let's do this by teller vote to be sure we have it right. Are the tellers ready to take a vote? We're going to take a vote now by tellers. If the tellers could take their places in the audience, in the parking lot and behind me, and be prepared to count the votes, I'd appreciate it. Let's do the vote again. Be sure there's a teller behind me as well as in the lot. All those in favor of the amendment means cutting $200,000 from the police budget. Please raise your cards and hold them up. This may take a while to count. The tellers, please count the votes that are up right now. This is for the amendment. Give it 10 or 15 more seconds. Be sure they're all counted. Ten more seconds. Apparently some are still not counted. Okay, if the tellers could signal to me that they're done. All right, please put your cards down. All those opposed to the amendment, could you raise your cards and hold them up for a bit because we need to count them. Would the tellers now please count the cards that are up now? These are the votes against the motion.
Mr. Moderator, how many tellers do you have over here? Because I saw one lady walking by, and I don't think she caught anybody over here before you changed it. And
We're
I'd
going
like
to figure this out in just a minute.
I'd also like to.
We'll figure this out in a minute.
I'd also like to suggest maybe tallying each pro and con.
Another 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. Okay, with the tellers, you may put the cards up. With the tellers, please go to a microphone and report your totals, pro and con.
I had,
Microphone to the left. Vote.
you want me to do it?
Yes, please.
17 for, 25 no.
25 no for teller number one. Teller number two. What was the subtotal for teller number two? 14 no, 40 yes. Fourteen yes on the amendment and 40 no on the amendment. 27 yes on the amendment. Oh, okay. Are there other tellers to report? Because there should be other votes. Could all the tellers please come up to the front? We need to get this cleared up. Could all the tellers please come up to the front right now? Thank you very much. We may need to take this vote again.
Had to be more than 2 tellers.
Well, that's the thing. And when she was walking down here, she was looking that way, and she never looked back this way. And by the time she got here, she started looking in there. I don't know if they have their assigned quadrants.
But only 2 reporters, only 2 tellers even reported.
Except, and then I think 1 or 2 from behind that table also.
All right.
But there should be, like, probably at least...
They're all supposed to go to the microphone, though, right? And only 2 went to the microphone.
I'm very sorry, folks. I hope you'd have a dress rehearsal for this, but we're not as organized as I would like. The tellers now are now going to take their positions, and they know what they're going to be doing. So please go all the way to the far row, all the way in the back. Carolyn, you're going to be up here in the front. Carolyn, you're doing this bit right here. From there to there, these 2 rows. All the way from there to the end. Okay? We're going to take that vote one more time. The tellers are now in place. I'm very sorry, but if we do this once right, we'll get better later.
Mr. Moderator, point of order, real quick.
Point of order, yeah.
I'm sorry to really interrupt, but can you just make the announcement that this is a vote for residents, that if you were a resident, that you need to hold up your yellow card, because there are non-residents in the audience
Absolutely.
that may be holding up something that is not their yellow card.
Fortunately, they won't have a yellow card, I hope. But yes.
So my point is, please make sure the tellers are only counting yellow cards.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I believe they know that. The tellers are in place. Let's try this one more time and get it right. The motion is to amend the police department budget by reducing it by $200,000. A yes vote is a vote to cut the budget. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your yellow cards. And tellers, please count the yellow cards for voters. The tellers are walking up and down the aisle between the cars, so if you want to lean out and wave at them, it'll be easier for them to see you. I believe they are done with that count. You may now put your cards down. All those opposed to the motion to cut the budget, please raise your cards.
What's that? Yeah, that is mine.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I keep stepping on it.
Oh, that's
I'm
okay.
just going to tuck it in so I don't...
Yeah, I just put it in there because I didn't want it to blow all over the place. Turns out there's no wind at all.
I
I wish there was.
It was a little breezy earlier. It was nice. Now that the sun's getting
Again,
on
if you lean
everybody.
out and wave it at the teller, it'll be speed things
Not
up. I
far
hope.
from going behind the mountains.
And don't turn the lights on, we'll have bugs. This is going rather much longer than I expected.
You think this is gonna pass? Looks about even, just eyeballing it.
I don't know, I was gonna make a I mean, originally I had all of this laid out in my notebook. But I didn't want to take the time to make motions for every single line item. It looks like you're doing that anyway.
Okay, I
Well, not quite,
believe
but pretty close.
we are,
And I was gonna do
so as I finished, okay.
grand total.
Yeah.
Behind
Told
me,
me I have to give them the
Karen,
exact total number,
Oh.
and I'm trying to exempt like collective bargaining
yes,
union
21,
employees.
no, 37.
I can't add that up right now. I'm trying, but it's not work.
Up here, yes, 23, no, 22. 23, 22. Carol,
Yes, 15, no, 30.
no, 30, and where's my last teller? Okay, and your totals are?
Yes, yes, 15,
Yes, 15,
no, 43.
no, 43.
Fails.
Although I can tell from the subtotals that the motion has failed, let's get you a total in just a second. So,
What they don't understand is the budget as listed in the warrant for the police department.
yeses were
That's not how much it
74,
costs
noes were
to run the
132.
police
The
department.
motion fails.
Health insurance,
Is there any
pension
further
benefits,
comment or
and
amendments on
OPEB
the-
are all in the
on
completely
the
different line for all
public
employees.
safety items in the
Right.
budget?
And that's why I'm like, I can't
Yes.
do a group
Public
cross
safety,
total
Public
for you.
safety, police, fire,
yes,
building inspection.
yes.
Could proceed?
My name is Jennifer Clark,
Standing here tonight.
Oak
Yeah.
Street, Great Barrington. I asked Chief Berger what item 117 for communications is for.
Question to Chief Berger about item 117 on the budget.
Yeah, that involves purchasing the radios and pagers that firefighters use, and also certain communication software that we use our cell phones for in order to know who's responding. That's actually not new to the budget. It's actually a cut in the budget. We used to have $7,500 in the emergency management line item that we actually removed out of there and put within the fire department budget. So we used to have a budget for $7,500 for that, and we cut it back at $5,000 this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments on the public safety part of the budget?
Bob Braddock, 8 Blue Hill Lane. This is in the context of the broader budget, and I would like to propose a
I'd
motion.
like to keep the discussion at this point on the line items as we go through it and save broader motions about the whole budget for the end of that process.
Thank you.
If you would, thank you. Any further line item type questions about the public safety part of the budget?
Jim Stark, 1099 Main Street. When I was on the Finance Committee several years ago, I was interested in the union negotiations regarding the police and the library, and I was told that the town manager handles that, and as a member of the Finance Committee, it was not my business. It didn't seem to make sense to me, and I would be interested in hearing from the current Finance Committee people if they think they should be involved in union negotiations, or at least on the periphery. Thank you.
I'll refer that to the finance for a question, but we are getting a little bit beyond the numbers on the budget.
This is Anna Dwyer, Chair of the Finance Committee. I certainly think it's important for the committee to be updated on how the negotiations are going and to be informed about what likely salary increases we are to see. I guess I would want to talk more, certainly with you or also with the town manager, about what would be the implications of the Finance Committee being involved in union negotiations. So I guess at this point I'd want to learn more about what would be the implications for the negotiations.
Yeah, respond.
No, well, actually, unless you're going to propose a change in the numbers on the budget, I'd like to move forward. Further comment on the public safety part of the budget? I see to the left, and please try not to repeat things that have already been said. We've been at this for quite a while.
Thank you. This is Jeff Lowenstein, 1066 Main Street in Housatonic. I want to echo the discussion that's been shared earlier of saying if we're not going to take drastic measures of the budget, that we at least look at how we are allocating increases in the budget. And so I would like to move to amend Article 4 of the warrant to reduce the police department line item by $36,000 by reducing line item 94 for overtime pay by $30,000 and line item 104 by $6,000. That represents a level budget over fiscal year 20. And to increase the human services budget by $36,000 to fund organizations including but not limited to the Berkshire County branch of the NAACP, the Breen Center, Berkshire South Community Center, Community Health Programs, Railroad Street Youth Project, Berkshire Community Action Council, Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, the Elizabeth Freeman Center, Multicultural Bridge, and the Literacy Network of Southern Berkshire. And I do have the motion in writing.
Please bring it up here. Your motion at this point is to reduce the line item for the police by $36,000. We are not doing adjustments at the level of the line item detail you see in the back of the book. We're doing them only at the level that is in the warrant. There's a motion on the floor to reduce the police department budget by $36,000. Is there a second? A motion and a second. Are there points to be made about this proposed motion which were not made about the previous motion? Seeing none willing to speak on this one. Oh, wait, could you get to the microphone, please, quickly? Thank you. I'm asking you at this point for debate.
I'm Jim Brown at 10 Berkshire Heights in Great Barrington. I think that this type of motion is inappropriate if you want to affect the ways that the police department does its job or the procedures, etc. You should work at that prior to the town meeting. It doesn't really make sense to come and just try to cut something here in the middle when there's been no preparation, no planning, nothing for it. What you want to do may be appropriate, may be good, but there's a procedure, and it's not to just show up at the town meeting. If you want to make changes to the way they do things, then I suggest that you work at it during the year.
Thank you. Chief Walsh would like to respond.
Thank you. Just very quickly, on the overtime, the overtime is important simply because there's always some openings in there, and some of it will be, the new contract gets signed tomorrow night. There's some contractual obligations, so that increases some of it, and the rest of it is simply because there's always vacancies throughout the year for one reason or another, beyond the usual vacation, sick time, other things like that. There's always some other openings, people leave, maybe training, and it requires the overtime. We tried to keep that, pretty much level funded over the years because I realize it's a big figure, but we've never had at that or put anything in there that we did not need or did not use. So I would just ask, and the vehicle supply real quickly is that with the 7 cruisers we have, take some maintenance. They break down now and then. They're running all the time, and there's a maintenance cost. So the vehicle supply is for 7 vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. The Finance Director speak.
Thank you. To follow up on the overtime, we actually were trying to bring that line item more in line with past actual costs. Typically, the overtime has been over $200,000. So by cutting that 30, it would just be a significant reduction and would be nowhere near what we've been spending in the prior years. So it was to try to get the line item back up to a little closer to the expenses.
Further debate on the motion to reduce the budget by $36,000.
Yes.
Seth?
Mr. Moderator.
Okay, you're first.
Steve Freeman, 87 Railroad. 2 things I'd like to make a comment that this this is exactly the place to fine tune the budget items. There's no way we could have this many people show up to every single meeting, to every single item that's on this list. And so there'll be times that things come to our attention at this meeting or prior to this meeting when we finally get to find out where the warrant is. And so then we can come here and discuss it. That's the point of this discussion time right now. And that said, I would also like, before we take this vote, it sounded like you had some confusing statement about what was or was not in his motion. I would like you to read it to us exactly as it is, what we're voting on prior to taking the vote, please.
I treated his motion for current purposes as a motion to reduce the police department budget line item by $36,000. He additionally included in his speech a proposal to add money elsewhere.
Correct.
Which I propose to get to when we get to that part of our debate down the budget.
Okay, will he have to remember that, or will you add it back in at the time?
I'll invite him to make the motion at that time,
Okay.
depending upon what happens to this one. Further comment on this proposed amendment?
Seth Keys, 22 Gilmore Avenue, Great Barrington. I support our police department and the efforts of Chief Walsh, but I also support the efforts to reduce the finances going to the police department moving forward. I would suggest that concerned citizens with the police department and with other staff members meet over the course of the next year and come back to us in fiscal year 2022 with a firm proposal. Thank you.
Seeing no one at the microphones and no one waving a card, I'm going to try to count a vote for here on this one, but tellers, please be ready because we may end up having to count this one. All those in favor of the amendment, which is to cut $36,000 from the police department budget line item, please raise your cards. Thank you. Thank you. Those who are opposed to the motion to cut 36, please raise your cards. The amendment fails. Thank you very much. At 7:28, we are going. Believing that there is there further discussion on public safety?
Charles Williamson, 48 Blue Hill Road. 50 years of coming to these meetings, you see this line items change all the time. I'm just making a suggestion. Anytime you see anything over 30% increase, something should be done. And I'm talking about the fire department overtime. Their budget is over $600,000, and now they're increasing their overtime 85%. Now I don't know if that's because we're calling out two departments, Housatonic and Barrington, for the same call. But when you see 85% increase, I just say, what happened from last year to this year? Something's going on.
Chief Berger?
Yes, there are a number of things going on here. Some of it's reallocation of funds, and it also has to do with the change in how we're operating from 6 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. We have one firefighter on duty, and so their callback pay and also filling in for somebody not working comes out of overtime. We didn't previously have that. That also comes down to in previous years, if you look. Back in 20 original, you will see a slight increase in the firefighters line item, which is what's paid to the call firefighters. That's because some of that money is no longer coming out of there, and it's coming from overtime. So that's why there's been that change. But within that change of how we operate, we signed an MOU with Sheffield. So we're doing the fire inspections for Sheffield for $24,000 a year. So that, and along with, if you look at the clerical line item, which was actually just moved from, we now split an administrative assistant that used to be full-time in the Senior Center, Council on Aging, now that's split 50-50 between the fire department and there. So when you actually offset the increase in revenues and just the fact that some money's being reallocated in different line items, there's actually only a $7,000 increase to the fire department's budget, which is a 1.1% increase.
Seeing no further line for that item, I'd like to move on now to the Department of Public Works line. Are there questions